They said it wouldn't work. It seemed too late, as if there was no way forward. But against all odds, the story went on. Something transformed. Not because things got simple, but because the choice to stay was stronger than the fear. There was someone who saw beyond the masks, someone who, even in the face of flaws, chose to stay. And more than that, they believed. Not in what was shown, but in what was hidden. And when they both started walking at the same pace, everything began to make sense, without needing to explain anything. The connection endured where others would have crumbled. It grew amidst the chaos, silent, strong, present. Every fall served to strengthen. Every scar became part of the silent bond that no one sees, yet sustains everything. The impossible didn't disappear. It just lost its power. But look, there were still long nights. There were still difficult silences. This isn't about magic. This isn't about fairy tales. It's a struggle. It's real people. It's love that chooses to continue even when the heart wavers. Because yes, the heart wavered. There were days when everything felt too fragile, and there were days when a simple glance supported what words could not. It was no longer about wanting to win. It was about not giving up. It was about knowing that behind all the defenses, there was still a possible home. Not perfect, not intact, but genuine. And those who live it understand. There are times when silence is not absence. It's resistance. It's a way to go on when strength doesn't come easily, when the soul is tired but doesn't want to let go. And even if no one understands, even if it seems strange to outsiders, what was built inside can't be measured, can't be explained. It's intimate, it's invisible. And yet it's more real than everything that can be seen. The flaws haven't disappeared, but they stopped being threats. They became part of the landscape. They didn't weaken. They served as reminders. We kept going, even when it hurt. We stayed even when it would have been easier to leave, because when affection is genuine, it doesn't seek perfection. It seeks presence, and presence heals more than promises. Are you still here? I am, and that was enough. Are you still here? I am, and that was enough. It wasn't the prettiest speech. It wasn't the most thoughtfully planned promise. It was simply the choice to stay, even with doubts, even without a manual. Because sometimes loving is just that, not knowing how it will turn out, but deciding to stay to discover together. And yes, there were days without answers. There were moments when both were simply tired of fighting against the world, and sometimes even tired of themselves. But at some point between the exhaustion and the confusion, the presence of one another was still a refuge, even without words, even without touch. Because when the connection is real, it speaks in silence, it embraces without arms, it listens without interrupting. And no matter how much the past wanted to shout, no matter how much the fears sneaked in, they did not win. Because every time the mind thought about leaving, the heart remembered what had been built, what was born from pain, what was forged in the midst of chaos, what exists only because it didn't go away in the first storm. Those on the outside don't understand. They don't comprehend how they are still together. They can't grasp why they chose this difficult path. But those who live it know. They know the value of each silent reconciliation. They know the weight of putting aside pride. They know the strength it takes to say, let's try again, when everything around says, give up. It's not a fairy tale, it's resilience, it's reconstruction, it's faith, not in the ideal, but in what is possible when there is truth. And that changes everything, because when truth enters, illusion leaves, and with it, the fear of seeming fragile also goes away. They understood that they didn't need to prove anything to anyone, nor fit into a mold, not repeating what others expected of them. They just needed to be real, to stay, even if trembling, to listen to themselves, even when it hurt, to allow space, even when the urge was to scream. And right there, in that imperfect space, something sacred grew, not romanticized, not artificial, but alive. A story that doesn't deny the falls, but finds strength in them. A story made of small choices, made every day, not turning away, not letting go, not forgetting what the eyes once saw on the other when everything was simpler. And even if today seems harder, the essence is still there. It hasn't gone away, it's just become quieter, deeper. It doesn't need to shout anymore. Now it speaks with the tired gaze that still shines. It speaks with the timid touch that still seeks. It speaks with the embrace that still finds a place. And in that place, the impossible no longer frightens. Because if they made it this far, it wasn't by chance, it was by faith, it was by dedication. It was by love that chooses. And that, no one can take away. Have you ever stopped to think about how much you've resisted to? Have you noticed how there's something in you that doesn't give up easily? Even when everything in you wanted to stop, something deeper pulled you back. This strength isn't fragile. It's faith disguised as persistence. That's why you resonate with this message, because you've lived through things that no one saw. You've sustained bonds that no one valued. You stood tall when everything seemed to crumble, and that shaped you. Not as someone perfect, but as someone genuine. That's why this story is yours too. You know the pain of rebuilding. You've held back tears just to avoid hurting someone. You've silenced words to preserve a connection. You know what it's like to fight for what no one else sees. And maybe that's why this message finds you now. Not as a coincidence, but as confirmation. You are not alone in this. You are not crazy for persisting. You are just too profound to accept shallow relationships. You love with commitment. You care with intensity. You feel deeply, and that's why when something breaks, you don't throw it away. You try to fix it. Even when no one understands. Even when the other person seems not to see. And yes, sometimes that gets tiring. But it also reveals. It reveals that your love isn't superficial. It's rooted. And everything that is rooted is not easily pulled up. And when you choose to stay, even with everything in pieces, it's not because you don't know the way out. It's because you understand the value of what's inside. Those who truly love are never captives. They are warriors. Staying is not imprisonment. Staying is a conscious choice by those who know the weight and still decide to carry it. Because there are bonds that can't be explained with logic. They can only be felt. They can only be lived. And those who lack depth will always call madness what is, in fact, courage. Courage to persist. Courage to start over as many times as needed. Courage to see the other person, not for what they show on their worst day, but for everything they have inside that they can't always express. You've done that. More than once, you've held someone up with calm words. You've protected someone who didn't even know it. You've loved quietly just to avoid overwhelming them. And all of this is love in its rawest and truest form. It's not soap opera love. It's not social media love. It's real love, full of contradictions, yet full of strength. It's that kind of love that learns to wait, not out of complacency, but out of faith. Because you know that people sometimes get lost. But you also know they can find their way back, and that's why you stay. Not as someone begging, but as someone offering a bridge, a possibility, a safe place. You've become that place, even when wounded, even when tired. You've made yourself a shelter, and those who look only see the outside. But only you know how much it hurt to learn to be this way. Only you know how many times you needed to rebuild yourself in silence, how many times you felt like you were giving your all and receiving almost nothing in return. But still, you stayed. Because deep inside you something was saying, this still makes sense. This can still bloom. And you know what? It really can. True love doesn't die easily. It might hide for a while, it might stay silent, it might get confusing, but it doesn't die. No, because genuine love has deep roots, and it can even spring back from the driest soil. Sometimes that's all it needs, time, space, truth. It doesn't need perfection. It needs people who are willing. And you were that person. You may have made mistakes, of course, everyone does. But you weren't negligent, you didn't turn your back, you tried. And trying, in times when almost no one persists, is noble. It's rare. It's sacred. Don't diminish yourself for that. You're not weak for feeling too much, you're strong for continuing even while feeling everything. And if in this moment you're wondering if it was worth it, if you're unsure whether you should stay, breathe. Remember what brought you here. Remember what you've already overcome together. The times it almost ended, but didn't. The nights when everything seemed to crumble, but dawn came. Remember the eyes that once looked at you with gratitude. Remember the hands that reached for you in the dark. Remember the words that, even though few, made you stay. Not everything is lost. It's just being tested. What is true doesn't disappear. Sometimes it just withdraws. It just protects itself. It just reorganizes. But if there's still love inside, then there's still a way, and the path may be long, but it exists. Just don't let go. Not now. Not after everything. You are stronger than you think, and what you've built is worth more than any fleeting misunderstanding. And if you need to cry, cry. If you need to be silent, be silent. But don't pretend you don't care, because pretending is more exhausting than feeling, and you were made to live intensely, not to live on autopilot. Those who love with their soul can't be shallow, and those who truly know you and know that, they know that behind all this strength, there is a heart that just wanted to be embraced, not demanded, not judged, just seen, just understood. And you will still be. You will still be seen in your entirety. You will still be loved as much as you love. You will still be chosen without needing to beg. Just keep going. Because the love that sustains itself even when everything seems to be falling apart, that love prevails. And when it does prevail, it will be worth every tear, every weight, every sleepless night, every new beginning. You will look back and understand, it was hard, but it was real. It was tough, but it was true. It was painful, but it was mine. And what is true is always worth it, even when no one applauds, even when everything seems to be going backward, even when the pain of continuing feels greater than the comfort of giving up. Because deep down, you know, there is something greater being built. Even if it is not yet visible, it is invisible to the eyes, but not invisible to the heart. And the heart feels. It feels when something is worth the investment. It feels when it is not time to let go. And it was that feeling that kept you standing. While many chose to leave, you chose to stay. Not because it was easy, but because it was real. And nothing that is real comes easy. Everything that is real hurts a little, but everything that is real remains. Even when patched up, even when tousled, even when flawed, it remains. And that speaks more than any beautiful speech. You have already learned that love doesn't always come in the form of flowers. Sometimes it comes in the form of silence, of waiting, of outstretched hands in the dark, of I'm here even without knowing what to say. You have been that presence. You have held everything alone when no one noticed. You have kept words to avoid hurting. You have swallowed your pride to maintain what was important. And even when you felt unappreciated, you stayed, not out of dependence, but out of loyalty, out of depth, out of commitment. And this cannot be taught. Either a person has it or they don't, and you have it. You carry something that time cannot destroy. You love with consistency, not with impulse. You build with roots, not just appearances. And because of that, your pain is deeper, because you feel with truth. But also because of this, your harvest will be different. Because everything that is nurtured with soul sooner or later flourishes. Even if it takes time, even if it hurts, it will bloom. And when it does, no one will understand how you endured for so long. No one will know what you held on to when no one was watching. But you will know, and you will smile, not because you defeated someone else, but because you conquered yourself. You conquered impatience. You conquered ego. You conquered the pride that screams, to make way for the voice of the heart that whispers. And the heart always knows. It always recognizes where there is still love. And if there is still love, then there is still a chance. Even if the road is confusing, even if the days are cold, even if the words are few. Love doesn't need a spectacle. It just needs truth. And that's what you offered. Truth. Sometimes twisted. Sometimes raw. Sometimes unsure if it would be well received. But still, truth. And that's why you won't leave this story as someone who lost. You will leave as someone who lived everything they could, without holding back, without hiding. You gave your most noble self, your essence, and those who do this never lose. Even if the other person doesn't see it, even if the other person doesn't appreciate it, you will sleep in peace, because you did everything within your reach. And maybe this is the greatest victory of all. To be able to look within and say, I was whole. I was true. I went as far as I could. And if you need to move on, you will. But with a clear soul. Because when the giving is real, it leaves marks. And these marks, they don't fade. Sooner or later, someone will look at you with the right eyes. They will see everything you are. They will appreciate all that you offer. They will love you the way you love. And they won't run away, they won't doubt, they won't waste it, they will stay. And when that happens, you will understand why you had to wait so long, why you had to insist so much, why you had to break so much. Everything was shaping you, preparing you, because a heart like yours can only be given into hands that know what they are receiving. You weren't born to be almost, you weren't born to beg for attention. You weren't born to be carried like a burden. You were born to be chosen, to be loved with presence, with reciprocity, with dedication. And that's how it will be. If you believe this, write in the comments, I am truth, and I won't accept less than that. I believe that the right love recognizes and chooses. This is your declaration, not to convince anyone, but to remind yourself of who you are, what you carry, how much you have already endured. You have a story that few would understand, but you don't need to be understood anymore. You just need to keep being true, because the truth, sooner or later, wins. If this resonated with you, comment your truth, subscribe, and leave a like. This story is yours too.